You housewife has it easy, lazing around at home every day, living off my hard-earned money, acting like you know it all. My husband Ethan pointed at me in front of all his employees, his voice booming. I was so shocked that my body started trembling uncontrollably. Just minutes ago, this was supposed to be an elegant New Year's Eve party. In this luxurious hall, bathed in the light of chandeliers, my husband has suddenly turned his words of abuse towards me. Never did I imagine he would expose his true colors, the ones he usually reserved for our home, in a place like this. Never did I imagine that I would be subjected to such humiliation. I could hear the female employees whispering, covering their mouths, and the crude laughter of some male employees. So that's the boss's wife? No wonder he dresses so plainly. I'd always made an effort to dress neatly and modestly, but even that, apparently, was a source of shame for my husband. But I'm not wrong. I'm not in the wrong. I didn't choose to live my life with flashy clothes, caked on makeup, and putting on airs. That's who I am now. So why do I have to be the laughingstock like this? Not a single person offered me any support. My heart was about to break. Why did I have to endure such public humiliation? Then Ethan grabbed my shoulder roughly and pushed me forward. Hey, why don't you greet everyone? Tell them how you live a life of luxury thanks to my hard work. His face was flushed red from the alcohol, and he shook me, trying to provoke laughter from his employees. The grip on my shoulder was so tight that it hurt, but the pain in my heart was even worse. How could the hands of the man who was once so gentle become so cold? Where had the vows we made when we got married gone? The everyday, simple happiness we had cherished, had it all been just an act for him? The sound of Ethan's loud laughter, mixed with the chuckles of his employees, echoed through the party hall. The light from the opulent chandeliers suddenly felt cold, and I could only lower my head in shame. To have my worth denied in such a manner, in such a place. The years of putting up with this treatment were reaching their limit. And then a feeling I had never experienced before welled up inside me. It was like something I had been suppressing for years was about to erupt like a volcano. My body felt hot and my fingertips trembled. There was no turning back. Slowly, I lifted my head and looked directly at my husband. My name is Sarah Miller, and I'm a 45-year-old stay-at-home mom. I currently live with my husband Ethan and our son Noah, who is in his 3rd year of middle school. It's been 16 years since Ethan and I got married, but to be honest, our relationship isn't great. That's because Ethan changed drastically right after we got married and started treating me with disdain. He was always friendly and acted like a good husband outside the house, but at home, he would look down on me and hurl terrible words at me. And it didn't stop there. After our son was born, Ethan started treating him badly too. On top of that, I had another big, deep-seated worry: Ethan's financial irresponsibility. Ethan worked for a large real estate company in our town and was currently a department manager. Ever since he was young, he had earned more than others his age, which made him quite the show-off. Even after we got married, he spent money on things like luxury car loans and expensive hobbies without a second thought for our household budget. I had always been acutely aware of the fact that his loan payments far exceeded his salary, and it had been a constant source of worry for me since the beginning of our marriage. I had meticulously tracked every expense, but based on the cars he owned and his expensive hobbies like collecting luxury watches, I had a strong feeling he was already over $50,000 in debt. I knew that if I didn't step in and support our finances, our family would be ruined. However, shortly after we got married, I found out I was pregnant and had to quit my job to become a full-time homemaker. So I desperately searched for a way to work from home while raising our child. That's when an idea struck me. Before getting married, I had worked for a major brokerage firm after graduating from college. I decided to use my knowledge and experience from my time at the brokerage firm to trade stocks while being a stay-at-home mom. However, the savings I had from my single days were limited, and I also needed to supplement our living expenses. So instead of engaging in risky, high-stakes trading, I opted for a more conservative, long-term investment approach. To hone my stock trading skills, I diligently followed financial news every day and spent my free time analyzing market trends, constantly refining my strategies. My efforts paid off, and within a few years, I was able to generate substantial profits. But I kept this a secret from Ethan. He was careless with money, and I was afraid he would try to take advantage of my earnings if he knew about them. This situation went on for over a decade. Meanwhile, Ethan's overbearing behavior only worsened. He started treating me like a servant and, despite rarely contributing to the household expenses, would often boast to Noah and me that he was the one supporting us. "You guys are able to live like this because of me. You should be grateful you're even being fed," he would say, while spending most of his salary on himself, showing complete disregard for Noah and me. In recent years, Ethan had been splurging on things like a new luxury car from a high-end dealership and expensive watches, all to keep up appearances. In contrast, his interest in our family had dwindled significantly. And then 3 years ago, he suddenly reduced the monthly living expenses he provided from $2,000 to a mere $500. I still remember what he said to me at the time. $500 should be more than enough for living expenses. If you can't manage with that, you're a failure as a stay-at-home mom. The living expenses Ethan was referring to included utility bills like electricity, gas, and water. Of course, the money he provided was nowhere near enough, so I had to dip into my stock trading profits to cover the shortfall. The impact of our dysfunctional family dynamic wasn't limited to just me. It was also taking a toll on Noah's emotional well-being. Ever since Noah was little, Ethan had been belittling him with harsh words. Perhaps as a result of that, Noah became withdrawn and started skipping school after entering middle school. Noah had always been introverted, and the constant verbal abuse and intimidation from his father made him retreat further into his shell, often locking himself in his room when he was home. To protect Noah's fragile emotional state, I decided not to force him to go to school and instead tried to be as supportive as possible. The one saving grace was that Noah was academically gifted and continued to study diligently at his own pace. But Ethan, in his typical fashion, blamed me for Noah's truancy and even tried to force him to go to school, often resorting to yelling and threats. Noah, terrified of his father, never disobeyed him directly, but started avoiding him altogether. When Noah stopped responding to his commands, Ethan would lash out even more violently. As a result, the relationship between Ethan and Noah became extremely strained. Amidst all this turmoil, the one bright spot was Noah's homeroom teacher, Miss Thompson. She had extensive experience supporting students who were struggling to attend school regularly. She always took the time to listen to Noah's concerns and offered him positive encouragement. Miss Thompson was around my age, and I gradually opened up to her, confiding not only in Noah's issues but also about my struggles with Ethan and our family situation. Miss Thompson listened patiently, although she seemed a bit uncomfortable when I talked about my marital problems. However, when it came to Noah's education, she was incredibly dedicated, often bringing extra learning materials and tailoring her approach to suit Noah's pace. And thanks to Miss Thompson's guidance, some of Noah's friends started visiting our home to study with him. Among them was a boy named Alex, the son of a police officer who was particularly supportive of Noah. They had been friends since they were little, and Alex continued to check in on Noah regularly even after he stopped going to school. I was deeply grateful that Noah has such a close friend, even if his social circle was small. At the time came to decide on Noah's high school, I was discussing options with Noah and Miss Thompson when Ethan suddenly made an outrageous demand. For some inexplicable reason, he insisted that Noah, who was currently not attending school, should leave home and start working. What's the point of him staying at home just eating and sleeping? He's just a freeloader. I'm not wasting any more money on his education. I was furious at Ethan's words. I could tolerate him demeaning me, but to say such unreasonable things to our own child, his own flesh and blood, was unforgivable. I was about to give Ethan a piece of my mind, but I stopped myself just in time. I remembered Ethan once bragging that the best way to silence a disobedient subordinate was to yell at them. He had a tendency to explode when things didn't go his way. I realized that if I confronted him, both Noah and I could be in danger. Besides, Ethan was still refusing to contribute to Noah's educational expenses, so I decided to ignore him. My silence only fueled Ethan's anger. It's because you're so lazy that Noah has become lazy too, and doesn't respect me. He then started blaming me for Noah's truancy right in front of Miss Thompson. His accusations were so outrageous that I almost retorted, but Ethan cut me off, bellowing, "Don't you dare talk back to me." He even went as far as to blame Miss Thompson, threatening to report her to the Board of Education. I was horrified by Ethan's behavior. I was worried that Miss Thompson, who had been so supportive of Noah, would get caught in the crossfire. To defuse the situation, I pretended to comply with Ethan's demands. "You're right, dear. I'll do everything you say. Please forgive us," I said, bowing my head apologetically. Ethan, seeing me submit, snorted and stormed out of the room. But then Noah turned to me with a look of disappointment. Mom, Noah, But Noah too left the room without listening to me, retreating further into his shell. My heart ached at the sight of my son's distress. To protect Noah, I had always suppressed my own feelings and pretended to obey Ethan. I realized that Noah probably saw me as a weak and pathetic mother. I had always felt helpless and resentful towards myself for being this way. I had endured and compromised for years, believing it was necessary to maintain our family for Noah's sake. But I was determined to make sure Noah got into high school. That was one thing I wouldn't compromise on. To achieve that, lying to Ethan seemed like a small price to pay. But I never imagined that my lie would hurt Noah. I felt like I was trapped in a maze with no way out. A few days later, I met with Miss Thompson again to discuss Noah's options. Miss Thompson, I want Noah to go to high school. I'll do as my husband says for now. I confessed to Miss Thompson, admitting that my lie had hurt Noah. Miss Thompson nodded understandingly. I suspected as much. Don't worry, I'm sure your feelings will reach Noah. I'll do everything I can to support you both. Let's work together. True to her word, Miss Thompson presented us with various options, including online high schools, and earnestly helped me explore the best path for Noah. Seeing our determination, Noah gradually opened up again and started showing a more positive attitude. He looked me in the eye and spoke with a newfound resolve. Mom, thank you for always protecting me. I want to do my best for you and Miss Thompson, so I've decided I want to go to a regular high school. Really? Oh, that's wonderful. But don't push yourself too hard. I'm fine, Mom. I want to live up to your expectations. I want to shape my own future. The high school Noah chose accepted students who had been truant, provided they had good grades. Miss Thompson, Noah, and I had multiple meetings to explain Noah's situation and prepare for the entrance exam. Noah started studying diligently, aiming to pass the entrance exam for his chosen high school. His friends, especially Alex, were incredibly supportive, and I was grateful for their help. However, the looming question of whether Ethan would approve of Noah's decision weighed heavily on my mind. Given his previous opposition to Noah's education, I doubted he would readily agree. I was torn between my desire to support Noah's dreams and the fear of Ethan's reaction. I even started questioning whether there was any point in continuing our marriage. Just as I was grappling with these thoughts, Miss Thompson came to me with an unusually grave expression. She had some shocking news to share. Sarah, please try to remain calm. There's something I need to show you, Miss Thompson said, handing me her smartphone. On the screen was a photo of Ethan walking arm in arm with a young woman. At that moment, several of Ethan's recent suspicious behaviors flashed through my mind like puzzle pieces clicking into place. The sudden reduction in living expenses 3 years ago, his growing disinterest in Noah and me, and his frequent claims of overtime and business trips. As I stood there, lost in thought, Miss Thompson hesitantly spoke. I happened to see them while I was out shopping on my day off recently, and I managed to take this picture. Miss Thompson then revealed another shocking piece of information. After that, Miss Thompson and I discussed the information she had gathered in detail. We decided not to make a big deal out of it until Noah's high school plans were finalized. And at that moment, I made a firm resolution in my heart. After that day, Noah successfully passed the entrance exam for his desired high school. Noah and Miss Thompson were overjoyed, but I was still worried about how to explain it to Ethan. But then Noah, with a determined look on his face, surprised me. Thanks to your support, Mom, I found my motivation again, and I've realized that being assertive can open up new possibilities. It was the first time I had seen such a mature side of Noah. As I looked at him in astonishment, he continued, his expression serious. I've always been protected by you, Mom. Now, it's my turn to protect you. He declared that he would talk to Ethan himself, and if Ethan didn't approve, he would leave home. Hearing Noah's resolve, I knew I had to be strong too. But then something unexpected happened. Out of the blue, Ethan demanded that I attend the company's New Year's Eve party with him. All the other employees are bringing their wives. As a manager, I can't show up alone. Don't even think about refusing. Don't embarrass me, he ordered in his usual condescending tone. I wasn't thrilled about it, but I reluctantly agreed to go. Little did I know what a disaster it would turn out to be. On the day of the New Year's party, around 100 people were in attendance. The venue was bustling, but not knowing anyone, I felt out of place and wished I could go home. I also felt piercing gazes from time to time, gazes filled with an unpleasant maliciousness, making the atmosphere quite uncomfortable. Many important clients were present at the party, and Ethan was in high spirits, chatting with them. Executives from our town's leading real estate companies were also in attendance. Then suddenly Ethan pulled me next to him, stood before everyone, and began a speech. And then he said something completely unexpected. My stay-at-home wife, who's completely dependent on my salary, has it easy. She lives a life of no hardship, all thanks to me. The venue fell silent as if someone had dropped a pin. Ethan's words were that shocking. Not only Ethan's superiors and executives, but also the client's top management turned to look at us. The large hall of the hotel, which had been filled with a festive atmosphere until that very moment, was now as cold and silent as if covered in a thin sheet of ice. In the midst of this, Ethan raised his voice even louder and started elaborating on how incompetent and inferior I was as a wife. She has no income of her own and goes around spending my money. She spends my salary so recklessly that we never have any savings. On top of that, she neglects the housework, and the house is always a mess. Because of her, my home life is miserable. I was utterly bewildered by Ethan's sudden, outrageous claims, and I just stood there dumbfounded. Ethan, seeing me frozen in shock, smirked. Then he declared even more loudly. My son became a truant because he was disappointed by his mother's lazy behavior. On top of that, she tried to kick our son out of the house to make him work. Several pairs of cold eyes pierced through me as people bought into Ethan's words. Whispers started spreading, tearing my heart apart. A stay-at-home mom neglecting housework, and she still has the nerve to show up at a party like this? The manager must have it tough. And she even treats her son harshly? She's a failure as a mother. The cruel remarks felt unbearable. I lowered my head, biting my lip, as the painful memories of our married life flashed through my mind. All my efforts until now had meant nothing to Ethan. That realization crushed my spirit. I wondered, why am I even here? Why did Ethan say those things? I had done my best to support Ethan in my own way throughout our marriage. I had poured my heart into raising our only son. But this was the result. It felt as if something inside my head was crumbling down. At the same time, a surge of intense anger welled up within me. As I stared at Ethan's face in disbelief, he said to me mockingly, "What's with that face? You want a divorce or something?" The moment he said that, something snapped inside me. I snatched the microphone from Ethan's hand and shouted at the top of my lungs, "Fine, let's get a divorce. And by the way, you're fired." Ethan was stunned by my unexpected counterattack. He stood there, mouth agape, not knowing how to react. Once again, the venue fell silent. In the midst of the silence, I felt a sharp gaze and turned to look in that direction. There was a certain person glaring at me. I instinctively pointed at that person and raised my voice again. Ethan tried to grab the microphone, but I swiftly turned away, evading his grasp. "That woman is my husband's mistress." My scream echoed through the hall, causing the woman's shoulders to jump. The room erupted in murmurs. Some people were saying, "I knew it," and so the rumors were true. It turned out that Ethan had been flaunting his close relationship with his mistress quite openly at the company, and it had become a hot topic of gossip among the employees. There were also rumors that his mistress, a young female employee, was using Ethan's position to climb the corporate ladder. The murmurs in the venue grew louder and louder. Now the cold stares were directed at Ethan and his mistress. "It's not what it looks like. We're just friends, really." "Yeah, it's all a lie. Don't believe a word she says." They both exclaimed, but I calmly said to the woman, "Tiffany, wasn't it? I know everything, thanks to Miss Thompson." "Huh? No way." The mention of Miss Thompson's name seemed to shake Tiffany. As it turned out, Tiffany was a former student of Miss Thompson's. That's why Miss Thompson felt she couldn't overlook the situation and decided to tell me. Miss Thompson had been worried about Tiffany and had tried to reason with her. Miss Thompson had warned Tiffany to end the affair, but Tiffany apparently claimed that Ethan had promised to marry her and that they would get a divorce from me soon, so it wasn't really an affair. I then addressed another one of Tiffany's obvious motives. "Tiffany, you were cozying up to my husband to get ahead in the company, weren't you?" My words caused another stir in the room. This time, the executives from the client companies started whispering among themselves. For a manager to promise a promotion to a subordinate in exchange for an affair? Could it be that his past dealings were also influenced by such motives? Disgusted looks were directed at Ethan and Tiffany. The female executives, in particular, had already been suspicious of Ethan's arrogant attitude and his tendency to make sexist remarks. The atmosphere in the venue shifted, and I felt emboldened to raise my voice even louder. Having an affair within the company while being a manager? Ethan should be fired for this. It was a heartfelt cry, straight from my soul. Once again, silence fell over the room. Ethan and Tiffany tried to grab the microphone from me again, but before they could, Ethan's superiors escorted them out of the venue. Many important clients were present at the party. Ethan and Tiffany had tarnished the company's reputation and caused great embarrassment. Their actions wouldn't be taken lightly. I quietly left the venue, contemplating the situation. After that incident, Ethan was demoted from his managerial position and became a regular employee. I immediately sought out a lawyer who specialized in divorce cases and entrusted them with handling the negotiations with Ethan. According to the lawyer, Ethan tearfully lamented his situation during their conversation. "I've been bullied by my former subordinates because of the affair, and I couldn't take it anymore, so I quit my job. I can't even keep up with the loan payments now." My lawyer had advised me that we could demand a higher amount of alimony, considering the damage to the company's reputation caused by Ethan's infidelity. Thinking about Noah's future education, I decided to seek as much alimony as possible. So I relentlessly pursued alimony from Ethan, including compensation for the years of emotional distress caused by his verbal abuse. Thanks to the lawyer's diligent negotiations, I was able to secure $30,000 for emotional distress and $20,000 for the infidelity, a total of $50,000 from Ethan. Of course, Ethan, who had always been irresponsible with money, had no savings. He apparently had to borrow money from somewhere to pay me. Naturally, I also demanded $15,000 from Tiffany for her part in the affair. Tiffany, unsurprisingly, tried to avoid paying, but my lawyer negotiated persistently, and she eventually paid the full amount, apparently after borrowing money from her parents. Tiffany also quit her job, as she couldn't stand the shame of having her affair exposed throughout the company. In the end, the two lovebirds blamed each other for the scandal and broke up. It seemed like Tiffany had lost interest in Ethan after he lost his job and was drowning in debt. The last time I had to meet with Ethan was to sign the divorce papers. He had lost a lot of weight in a short time, but I felt nothing for him. Perhaps not liking my indifference, Ethan spitefully threw some demeaning words at me as he reluctantly signed the papers. "You'll be living in poverty from now on, you know, you good-for-nothing housewife." I looked at him coldly and retorted, "I have my stock investments, so I don't need to worry. Besides, you barely gave me any money for living expenses. I'm better off without someone like you." And as a final blow, I told him that I was making an average of over $5,000 a month in profits from my investments. Seeing Ethan's frustrated face, I also ordered him to pay $1,500 a month in child support for Noah. That seemed to hit him hard, and he started crying, saying he couldn't pay alimony or child support because he was unemployed. "Don't you have any compassion? We were married for over 16 years, he pleaded. I turned to him, my expression devoid of any emotion. When I stared at him, he quickly averted his eyes. "You're paying over $4,000 a month just for your loan payments, and the debt collectors are breathing down your neck. I bet you're having a hard time, aren't you?" Ethan looked up at me, startled. I looked back at him and said clearly, "But you brought this upon yourself, didn't you? Luxury cars, watches, what else was it? You've always spent money however you pleased, without any regard for us. You're the one to blame." Ethan, completely defeated, said nothing. I made him sign an agreement to pay the alimony and left. After leaving home, Noah and I rented an apartment and started a new life together. Living with Noah was liberating and peaceful. I realized how much I had been suppressed in my previous life. Noah seemed happier too, now that he was free from his father's tyranny and the pressure of school. I truly believed that my decision was the right one. It felt like a dream to be free from Ethan's control. I wished this peaceful life would last forever. I was deeply grateful to Miss Thompson for everything she had done. If she hadn't counseled me and bravely informed me about Ethan's infidelity, I would probably still be trapped under his control. Miss Thompson, thank you so much. You saved Noah and me. When I expressed my gratitude, Miss Thompson smiled bashfully and shook her head. "Oh no, my contribution was a little. It was your strength and Noah's resilience that made the difference." I was also relieved to hear that Noah wanted to attend his middle school graduation ceremony. I felt so apologetic for not being able to protect Noah better. If I had had the courage to break free from Ethan's control sooner, Noah could have had a normal school life. When I apologized to Noah about this, he looked me in the eye and said earnestly, "Don't say that, Mom. It's not your fault. It's his fault for neglecting us and trying to control us." Noah's no longer the timid boy he once was. He had become assertive and confident. "Your courageous actions inspired me, Mom. That's why I've decided to live my life with strength too." Noah's smile was brighter and more robust than ever before. But then a major incident occurred while we were enjoying our newfound peace. Tiffany and Ethan reported Miss Thompson to the Board of Education, accusing her of leaking personal information about the affair. And I suspected Ethan was behind Tiffany's actions. It seemed like they were trying to get back at me and Miss Thompson. It was so unfair that they would retaliate like this, especially after what they had done. I was furious. Noah, too, was shaken with anger when he heard about it. Miss Thompson has always been there for students like me who have trouble going to school. How could they do this to her? She must be so hurt. Noah and I were deeply worried about Miss Thompson, who was now under investigation due to the false accusation. We vowed to support her no matter what. We just had to wait and see what would happen. Eventually, Miss Thompson explained to the Board of Education that she had confirmed the information with the individuals involved and shared it with me out of concern for Noah's well-being. As a result, the board determined that it wasn't an inappropriate disclosure of personal information, and Miss Thompson was cleared of any wrongdoing. Noah and I were immensely relieved, but our anger towards Ethan and Tiffany only intensified. Then another incident occurred. Someone leaked information online about me making a large sum of money from stock trading, along with my home address and phone number. Noah discovered it when he saw a social media post that had been shared widely. The post contained very specific personal details, and Noah was pale with fear when he showed it to me. What's worse, we noticed that the username of the person who leaked the information was very similar to one that Ethan used to use in the past. Could this be Ethan's account? I muttered, shocked. Noah, equally pale, stared at me. I was terrified by this sudden invasion of privacy and worried about Noah's safety. But then Noah, seeing my distress, tried to regain his composure. Mom, let's consult with a lawyer who helped us with the divorce. I immediately contacted the lawyer and asked them to demand that Ethan stop harassing us, but he ignored our request. And then things took a turn for the worse. Right after my personal information was leaked online, suspicious people started loitering around our apartment. We also started receiving a barrage of unwanted sales calls. I was appalled by how quickly the situation had deteriorated. Just when I thought Noah and I could finally enjoy some peace, this happened. Concerned for Noah's safety, I started avoiding going out as much as possible. Noah, on the other hand, seemed to be glued to Ethan's social media accounts, trying to gather information. He would report back to me, exasperated about Ethan's current situation. Apparently, the debt collectors are really putting pressure on him, and he's after your stock profits. His debt has surpassed $150,000, and debt collectors are showing up at his place. He's been posting all sorts of things on social media, ranting and raving about you. I was terrified by Ethan's obsessive behavior and his blatant disregard for our privacy. In his mind, I was still the villain. And then Ethan did the unthinkable. He sent a letter to Noah's high school, falsely claiming that Noah had concealed his truancy to get admitted. The school, in response, temporarily suspended Noah's admission to verify the facts. And then, as if that wasn't enough, Ethan boasted about it on social media, spreading the false information like wildfire. It created a minor scandal online, and my real name was exposed on social media once again. The news eventually reached Miss Thompson, and she was forced to resign from her position at the middle school. I felt terrible for Miss Thompson, and at the same time my anger towards Ethan intensified. Conversely, Miss Thompson seemed to feel a deep sense of guilt for the hardship we were going through because of her. Sarah, Noah, I'm so sorry that my actions led to all of this. It's all my fault. Miss Thompson, please don't say that. It's not your fault. It's Ethan and me who are to blame. Meanwhile, Ethan stopped paying alimony and child support altogether. In fact, he never paid the promised $1,500 a month in child support even once. Later, my lawyer found out that Ethan had run away, like a fugitive, to avoid the debt collectors. He had abandoned all his responsibilities, given up his luxury apartment, and disappeared without a trace. A few days later, in the middle of the night, someone tried to break into our apartment by smashing a window. Luckily, Noah shouted loudly, and the intruder fled. Although Noah's quick thinking saved us, the incident left me deeply shaken. Noah, what should we do? What should we do? I'm so scared. It's going to be okay, Mom. Don't worry, Noah said, trying to comfort me. He then revealed that he has secretly installed security cameras and had been keeping an eye out for suspicious individuals, all to protect me. Remember Alex, my best friend? Well, his dad, who's a police officer, gave me some advice on home security, so we're prepared. Noah tried to reassure me, but the fear that had taken root inside me was hard to shake. Moreover, the long years of suppression under Ethan's control resurfaced in my mind, slowly eroding my mental state. I became too scared to leave the house and couldn't sleep at night. I was constantly on edge, reacting to the slightest noise. I was a nervous wreck. I started to think that maybe my decision to leave Ethan was a mistake after all. Maybe I should have just stayed silent and endured his abuse. Maybe I shouldn't have gotten a divorce. Regret washed over me, clouding my judgment. In a moment of despair, I grabbed Noah's hands and cried, apologizing to him. "I'm so sorry, Noah. I was wrong. We shouldn't have left your father." Noah firmly grasped my hands in his. His grip was surprisingly strong. "No, Mom, don't say that. I'm okay. It's my turn to protect you now. Trust me." And then Noah says something completely unexpected. "Hey, Mom, why don't we move away from this town? Somewhere far away?" "What?" I lifted my tear-stained face and looked at Noah in bewilderment. Noah, with a determined glint in his eyes, looked intently at me. "Actually, Miss Thompson reached out to me. You seemed so distressed, Mom, so I asked her for help. High school is my issue to deal with, after all." Noah then explained everything to me. Miss Thompson had told him about a high school in her hometown that was still accepting students due to low enrollment. She had explained Noah's truancy situation to the school, and they were understanding. Miss Thompson had even spoke to her local contacts to help us relocate. She had also informed the local police about our situation, and they had promised to keep an eye on us. "I think we should accept Miss Thompson's offer. I'm going to apply to that high school." Noah's words, so resolute and clear, resonated deeply within me. He was right. Let's move. If Noah was with me, I could make a life anywhere. It felt as if a fog had lifted from my mind. I was no longer going to be fixated on Ethan. I would move with Noah somewhere far away without telling Ethan and cut off all contact with him. I could still pursue the alimony and child support payments through my lawyer. With newfound clarity, I decided to leave everything behind and move to Miss Thompson's hometown with Noah. After we moved, my lawyer informed me that Ethan had called, demanding my contact information in exchange for paying the alimony. Of course, my lawyer refused, which apparently infuriated Ethan to no end. If we hadn't moved, I shuddered to think what might have happened. Then Noah said something that shocked me. "It's okay to give Dad my contact information, isn't it? I'll let the lawyer know." Before I could stop him, Noah had already called the lawyer. Seeing my anxious look, Noah winked and smiled mischievously. "It seems like things are getting pretty tough for Dad with the debt collectors. It's time to settle the score. It would be worse to just leave things as they are." A few days later, I understood what Noah meant. A robbery took place in the town where we used to live, and the suspects were apprehended. Apparently, the robbers had broken into a police officer's house and were caught red-handed. And then, a few days after that, Ethan was arrested too. The news came as a complete shock to me. It turned out that Ethan, in a desperate attempt to pay off his debts, had resorted to robbery. According to news reports, he was being pursued by debt collectors for over $200,000 and was under immense mental pressure. Ethan had apparently told the robbers about a woman who lived with her child and had made a lot of money from stocks. He promised them half of the stolen money. It was reported extensively. The robbers, however, claimed that Ethan was the mastermind behind the robbery, which led to this arrest. I didn't tell you this before, Mom, but the address I gave to Dad through the lawyer, it was actually Alex's house, the police officer's son. Noah said this with a hearty laugh, like a child who had just successfully pulled off a prank. It turned out that Noah had been secretly communicating with his friend, who had a police officer for a father, to come up with a plan. He had informed them that Ethan might attempt a robbery, and his friend's father had been prepared. Noah, in order to protect me, had devised a plan with the police to thwart Ethan's criminal intentions. "It's all going to be okay now, Mom. You don't have to worry anymore." Ethan denied the charges, but the apprehended robbers testified against him, leading to a guilty verdict. He was sentenced to 5 years in prison. Now at least Ethan could no longer threaten our peaceful life. In our new life in Miss Thompson's hometown, we were finally able to live without the constant fear of Ethan and the robbery. It was a small town, and everyone knew when newcomers arrived, so it would have been impossible to commit any crimes unnoticed. The local community welcomed us with open arms, and it became a new haven for us. Noah got into high school and was thriving. He made new friends and genuinely enjoyed going to school. Drawing from his own experience with truancy, Noah started counseling younger students who were facing similar challenges. Ms. Thompson was also able to find a teaching position at a nearby school, which brought immense relief to both Noah and me. This whole ordeal brought Miss Thompson and us even closer, and we formed a bond that was akin to family. As for me, I continued to trade stocks and also started working part-time at a local farm. Working with the soil helped heal my emotional wounds, and I gradually rediscovered my smile. This new environment revitalized me. Our presence as newcomers in the small town seemed to be valued, and the locals were incredibly kind to us. The warm interactions with the community were deeply appreciated by both Noah and me. Seeing Noah thriving in high school motivated me to work even harder. Noah and I supported each other, embarking on a new life, free from Ethan's tyranny.